bordering to creating specialized foundation models for different areas. Of course, you can start.
Cheaper, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So what we are talking about, we had this conversation with others. Is like, of course, we're going to utilize some of these general models at the base.
Of course.
So this is a given. So when we say we're going to build our own language models, there's something underneath there that we can use. But to really take it into a more concrete application field, that is where you build your sort of narrow language model or your specialized approach.
Right. But everything isn't language or images.
No.
So we have chemistry.
Yes.
Of course. So we've been working a bit with that, specifically on toxicity of chemicals. And the industry, of course, the pharmaceutical industry is running with this like crazy, and it's so productive. And it would be great if we could make that available to, let's say, the 200 or more small pharmaceutical companies in Sweden.
And you think a modality is missing here, something beyond like text, images, and audio to be able to do the more chemistry-related applications?
Well, I mean, you're training models on a different type of data, on
it's like
formulas and chemical reactions, and it's not...
But could the language model be a base for that, do you think? Or?
Might, but training on Gutenberg text is no good starting point for chemistry.
But it can work for code. Couldn't it work for...
but that's because there is code.
Yeah, but couldn't you fine-tune on chemical text or formula stuff?
Actually, I haven't even thought about it or explored how much chemical information there is just in the training data. If I were Meta, I would have maybe cleaned that out of the training for Llama. I don't know.
I mean, that could be a good example.
Interesting reason for that. Yes,
but something that Rice could help with.
We would love to do it, and we know how to do that kind of thing. But you can do the experiment of trying to find funding for that. And
so let's circle back to it's like a key observation of is what we discussed earlier is that we kind of have now more and more understanding of the vast opportunities we can do, and even in layman's are coming closer and closer to sensing these opportunities.
Yes.
So, but we are not there yet. So we have started to redistribute funding and budgeting in order to basically go after it. So that was a little bit your observation. That was sort of right now the key hurdle is how do we organize budget for this? How do we secure the money for this, regardless if it's within RISE or within a large corporation or stuff like that.
Exactly.
This is something new that doesn't just easily fit into the normal budgeting process, maybe, or is it too big, or what's the point? What is
I don't know. It's easier to present to an investment committee that you are going to build a house that has some kind of equipment in it and it will serve some kind of function in, I don't know, testing something. To invest a corresponding amount of tens or maybe even hundreds of millions for building sort of a software infrastructure, that's a totally different.
So this is, I think, this is a very interesting observation, because traditionally, if you go to a large enterprise, they're dealing with this in a traditional budget where you have your functional budget in different functional areas, and then you have your IT budget. Right, and here, all of a sudden, like, should it really go into the IT budget? Maybe not, or should it go? So this is a different beast altogether.
I think some companies, are perfectly on top of this and understand it and so on, but it's still hard to free up the funding. And when you look at the numbers that are being thrown around by the big IT giants, it's a little bit off-putting, maybe. Yeah, let's invest $10 billion in a new model. No, not really.
Super interesting topic, and let us get back to that a bit more. I think the ability for companies in Sweden in general to obtain the funding necessary to do the transformation they may need, or to start making use of AI properly, is a very interesting topic. But before that, very welcome here, Sverker Janson.
Thank you.
Director at RISE, right? Or what's the title right now?
My title, I have two roles. I am on one hand head of the AI Center at RISE, which is formerly called the Center for Applied AI at RISE. And I am also what is called a unit manager. I have 20-ish people working for me on a subset of those topics, mostly scalable platforms, scalable data platforms, Also.
And we'd love to hear more about
Great,
what you do at the
great,
center
great,
shortly.
yeah.
That sounds super interesting. And I think I've known you at least, I'm not sure where we met the first time, 2014 or something, the Spotify days for me.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, at 6 at that time, right?
Were you at
Yeah.
6?
Yes, a long time.
Lars Albertsson and all the
Yeah, Lalle, of course.
Lalle,
Yes, of
Gilblad,
course. Yeah, definitely.
Daniel. There's a
Yeah,
bunch of-
everyone.
But everyone.
Yeah, of course.
How many years were you at 6?
Should I really
Yeah, should
reveal
you
that?
really reveal that?
Oh dear. So actually, I started chatting with the people who were at the university at that time when 6 was about to be formed.
Oh,
And
the one that
I was a student at the time, and they said, they're going to start this institute. I wonder who should work there. So I had a summer job the first summer that 6 existed in '86.
So you were there from the start.
More
or less.
More or less. And then I started in '89. I was a PhD student at the time. Yeah.
And Lalle and them, they came in a couple of years later, right? Or
I don't remember exactly
early
when,
90s
but
maybe.
probably early 90s. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a small network sometimes, or a small world. So to
No,
speak.
it's
But please describe to us, who is really Sverker? How would you describe yourself?
He's really Sverker. Sverker likes to make sure that good things happen. No, but I mean, it's sort of a perspective on. So I am very much into recent years. As we suggested, I've been at this for some time. And
how many years is it in total now? 6 and rise?
We're getting back to that issue.
No, we left that, Anders. Don't
we said
think
the
more.
year. No, quite a large.
Soon 30?
No, I became head of a unit in '93, so I've been that for over 30 years, and seen many generations of research groups and several spin-offs and so on and so forth.
That's impressive.
Were you talking AI then, or was it more data management, data processing?
Six was formed on the basis of AI as one
that's
of the
the point,
legs
right?
it was standing on. Yeah. Definitely,
From
all the time.
beginning.
But AI at the time, as you, I don't know, I'm trying to see how old you guys are, but old enough maybe,
Yes.
was symbolic AI,
Symbolic then more.
of course. And so I was active in logic programming was the theme of the time. And also automated theorem proving,
Expert systems.
constraints, expert systems for a little while. That sort of faded out fairly quickly in the late 80s. But
Cool. And how has the years, the few number of years at Rise
the very
to 6?
little, exactly.
If you just very briefly were to describe the journey, so to speak, what do you start as, and how did you end up in the position you have today?
Yeah, so I did my PhD on programming languages, that is concurrent constraint languages that were easy to implement on parallel machines, which we had at the time, that were good for symbolic processing.
Oh, you did.
And
That's
when I completed my PhD, this...
in KTH or in...
no, Uppsala.
Uppsala.
And this coincided with the surge of internet and sort of distributed systems. So we started looking at agent-based systems, distributed agents. And
Coming in vogue again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun.
And there were many concepts then that can be leveraged in a totally different way using language models, I think, as the basic reasoning engine of agents that will
Blow this.
This will change everything, I think.
So agent-based approaches will come back in the big time now.
I would expect them to do, and many of the concepts being investigated at the time are make sense.
Makes sense now.
To
Even
now,
more.
no, then not, because the
True.
agents were too weak, much too weak.
To give them autonomy then was no.
But we organized an international competition that was sort of co-organized or co-located with major AI conferences. We had something called the trading agent competition. So we had competition formats where you would build agents that competed in one case for the components of a business trip. So you would compete with other agents in markets for air tickets, hotel nights, event tickets, things like that. That was one competition format. The other competition format was supply chain trading competition. So you would buy the components of computers and satisfy the demand of customers' flows. And the cool thing about that was that the winning approaches so clearly combined machine learning and optimization or reasoning. And again, we see that coming back, the need for combining these two, because machine learning is, well, I should moderate that, because with O1 we now see how super powerful machine learning can actually encompass also algorithmic aspects. But essentially you need some kind of optimization engine for really difficult problems.
You need different techniques, and
yes, and you combine them.
And how you combine them is the magic sauce.
That will be for any non-trivial AI application.
Well, I guess you mean some kind of reasoning or search is...
Reasoning, algorithm search, yeah. I mean, we've seen this over and over with AlphaZero, etc., etc.
But I think this is so obvious. We talked about this here. You know, if you can combine the power of what we could do with AlphaGo and AlphaZero, and then combine that with a large language, you know, the logical next step in research is how we combine these different strengths.
So AlphaZero, of course, already leveraged machine learning or deep learning in understanding board states and sort of encoding the intuition of millions of games. The interesting thing will be to see to what extent the algorithmic part, the Monte Carlo tree search, etc., can be somehow picked up by models like O1.
Exactly.
And sort of, I'm super enthusiastic about this step. I think it's a major step in this class of models, really.
And this is a big rabbit hole. Let's
go. You want to slip down it an hour later?
No, maybe in an hour. I want to talk agentic in different ideas also.
Okay. And you did your PhD, and then you...
Oh, about me? Okay. Okay.
Just finish where we are.
No, we were talking about things we did some time ago, but then, I mean, about soon 20 years ago, you know, deep learning started appearing a little bit. And step by step from that time onward, it's been on the radar. And we have tried to build up capacity in groups and so on at RISE. And a few years ago, we even managed to convince central management to fund a center. So here we are.
And when did your journey formally become a RISE journey? So from 6?
That was completely linked to the, what's that in English? Verksamhetsövertagande. When acquisition of 6 by RISE.
Acquisition of 6 at RISE, then you were RISE.
So the Department of Computer Science at RISE is pretty much 6, not exactly.
No, but that's the origin.
That's the origin, yes.
Perhaps it's also valuable to just describe a bit for people that don't know, you know, what is really a RISE, and then also perhaps a bit more about the center you're driving. But if you start with RISE, what do they do?
What we do? We are the Swedish National Research Institute. We are 3,300 employees all over Sweden, dozens and dozens of sites. The origin is a large number of different institutes, sort of for different industry-specific research institutes. So in a wide range of topics, so concrete, 3D printing, etc., etc. Telco, everything under the sun, really. So RISE was a way to consolidate that and make it much more rational. It was really a mess with so many different little institutes. And today, so from my perspective, it's a fantastic playground. So I am a super curious person. I love different areas. And it's, I would say, the best possible substrate for driving AI that one could imagine, to sort of be able to have people who are experts in so many areas and who want to explore the potential of AI.
But how would you describe what a research institute is?
What it is?
Academia? Is it a corporation? Does it work for profit? You know, how do you collaborate between the two? And
excellent questions. Yes. So it's non-profit. Organization-wise, it's one of the government's companies, so it's like Vattenfall in a sort of strict formal sense. we are neither university. It's a little bit tricky to sort of really get into the groove of understanding what the difference is. So people are very much value-driven or curiosity-driven who work at RISE. They are not there to make have the best salaries or do an exit on a startup or anything like that. People spend some time at RISE and leave to do that, for example. It's not a university, but many of the junior people do PhDs, but as external PhD students to our partner universities.
Industrial PhDs.
Yeah, we call them institute PhDs actually.
Really?
Yeah. No, but I mean it's a separate form and has also separate funding from the Strategic Research Foundation, for example.
But is it fair to, from the outside, try to understand this as the bridge between academia and industry, and somehow be able to do applied research or bringing academic cutting-edge stuff into business? Or my take on this has been, comparing a little bit with Tecnalia in Spain. That is sort of, we are here basically to be some sort of, as AI is really research-driven to some point, but now it needs to land in real business, but it's still too immature to be really, So could you frame it as a mission and a purpose from this bridge perspective, or?
So I mean, I suppose to universities, our mission is to strengthen the competitiveness of industry and the innovation capability of the public sector.
Okay.
And this is what we strive to do.
Yeah.
And it's not. One can use different mental models. In some ways, it can serve as a bridge, but that's not precisely. I would rather call it a complement. Right. So we take positions that neither the private sector or the universities do, actually.
Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit also filling a gap here. This is
definitely lots of different shape. There are many different shaped gaps depending on the area. So for, let's say again, concrete or whatever, the gaps have some shape, and for the computer science IT sector, the gap is different. So in our case, for example, our role has always been to, when we work directly with industry on contract research, so to speak, we complement their cutting edge expertise. So they have lots of cutting edge people, but we are almost always able to have a couple of people who complement their expertise and can work with them. It's fine.
Cool. And I guess we won't come to the Center for Applied AI as well, but just for people that don't know the RISE, I mean, it's rather broad, right? Or what would you say what type of sectors does RISE operate in? What should I look at?
Everything. Everything, energy, transportation, production, materials, chemistry, pharmaceuticals, bioeconomy,
Samhällsbyggnad, infrastructure and...
We often but I mean
smart cities,
built environment.
Built
environments, smart cities, everything. I mean, just pick something out of the hat, and we will have someone working.
But if we now zoom in on the center, where does the center fit in RISE? So you have a center, and what's the org chart, so to speak, or division for the center?
So I guess it's in some ways a little bit different from some other centers, where sort of the center is the thing that you talk about, and the people are working in the center, and it's sort of, it could have its own house and its own partners, etc., etc. At RISE, the center supports. We already have a line organization with various units that already drive AI very actively, and the center supports certain groups to drive them even more, accelerate what they are doing. So we both work with our cutting-edge expertise, invest in that, and we also try to find forums to work across all of RISE, which is, of course, not super easy.
Would it be fair to call like a hub and spoke kind of organization, where the center is the hub, and then you have a lot of spokes outside in the rest of the RISE to make them all be able to? Yeah,
you could say that. Yeah.
So you have a mission as a center to strengthen the fundamental capability of around AI, which is you can apply for many different purposes, and then from this center you can support corporate clients in projects and stuff like that. But you can also now support and strengthen the other.
You expressed it so well.
I'm trying to. Yeah. But
no. Exactly.
Yeah.
That was very well put. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Can you give some example, perhaps, what the center is perhaps focusing on right now?
Right. So we have a fairly simple structure when it comes to the cutting-edge research that we support. We have a deep learning group that also covers computer vision and AI for sound, various modalities. Then we have a group that focuses on more the classical data analysis type of AI. So causal reasoning, things like that. And then we have people who focus on more compute infrastructure. So the
is
computational.
That part of the center, or is it?
No, this is part. I mean, these are topics that the center invests in, if you put it like that. Yeah. So all of these groups that I mentioned belong to different units in the organization, but the center supports them.
I see. Super interesting. I'm thinking we should move to more like a general Swedish topic a bit. And you say that RISE, of course, in the center then supports, I guess, primarily the Swedish society and ecosystem, or is it also outside of Sweden? Or?
I mean, we can work with partners outside of Sweden, and we do in EU projects and other international projects. But of course, the government funds us to strengthen Sweden. So yes.
How would you say the current state of the Swedish system, if you call it that, is when it comes to AI adoption primarily?
I would say, as you could expect. A few years ago, as we all know, the government has been rather laid back in funding AI explicitly, in contrast to some other nations,
including Nordic ones,
including certainly Finland and etc., who have been. But we had, fortunately, the Wallenbergs who did WASP, and that was a great boon to Sweden, I would say. So that took care of, in some sense, the
just
strengthening.
to explain, the Wallenberg had the WASP program.
The WASP program.
So that is like the biggest research program. It's like 5.5 billion Swedish or something.
I don't know the number.
But it's very much focused on strengthening our research.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't do, from my perspective, a lot for applied AI. But it's great for building long-term, really well-educated people. And the universities also took, of course, the baton and started educating people en masse.
With that, and because here again,
related to that, I guess some of the people they hired can teach the sort of cutting edge.
But it comes down to funding. At some point, there is a big bucket of funding, and now we can start up different types of education, and we can now fund PhD students.
Yes.
So it's all related.
No, it always comes down to funding.
Yeah.
And whereas the other types of funding, like Vinnova, I mean, that has always been, solved within the existing budget, which is already fairly small compared to the needs.
But you ask a question here. What is the state of the system? I think you can take a step back. When we are talking about the Swedish AI ecosystem that is here to drive Sweden's competitiveness forward, it's sometimes almost hard to grasp it. I mean, there are several key components. I think RISE is a key component. Vinnova is doing different things in terms of stuff. AI Sweden is doing something, and then of course we have the universities doing something, and then we have different directives from government. And so, when we say the AI, the state of the system, what do you think constitutes the key actors in this system?
Well, you mentioned several. I mean, it's a very pluralistic system with so many different parts intermingling in so many different ways. I think we're maybe missing a few, at least compared to some other countries. So the US, Silicon Valley has is the ecosystem of the companies that have been investing heavily in this. And what does this mean? It's not just the money, but it's the people who pass through that system and then out into the ecosystem.
Yes.
And people who know how to get things done. So we mentioned before our former colleague Lalle, Lars Albertsson, and I think he is an excellent example of someone who super experienced data engineer, knows exactly how to make things work at scale. And that is so valuable. And then he could move around and help other companies.
And he actually went through Google and Spotify. And
exactly.
So that's an example of exactly what you said.
And Schibsted, I think, and maybe, I don't know, I haven't followed in detail.
Yeah.
But this is you are highlighting.
But that's just one person.
But it's a miscomponent in the system here. Like if we contrast with other ecosystems around data and AI, I mean, like if you go down the Silicon Valley route, you have very strong connections from Stanford or whatever.
Yes.
But they have a very strong startup ecosystem around the university, and then they have a very strong VC. It feels like it's a machinery that sort of fits together.
Yeah, they have an order of magnitude larger investments in startups, etc. Of course, which gives that engine a totally different level of fuel.
Yeah.
But what they have, above all, is that they have people who have passed through Google and Microsoft and Facebook and know their engineering practices around lots of things, including AI.
When they start,
start a startup, so they have a totally different starting point, of course, and we don't have any companies just like that. I would say, I don't know. Spotify has maybe been the source of people.
Well, the only ones we talk about that could sort of not even come close, but that are examples would probably be the Spotifys and the Klarnas. And a couple of more.
And in a few years, maybe Recorded Future, which is
Epidemic Sound. You have a couple.
There are a few. But they need to grow and become. They need to have hundreds and hundreds of people to have offshoots to
the real hyperscalers that we can talk about now. I guess is Klarna and Spotify.
So just to summarize a bit, I mean, we have a lot of, fortunately, scientific funding through WASP and Wallenberg. We get some from the government as well for the universities and RISE as well that do get money from the government, right? But it's a lot focused on the science part of it. We are potentially lacking a bit on the engineering side then, if I hear what you're saying. And then, in other countries like US, they have the tech giants and they have insane engineering skills and investments. And why are we missing those? Very simple question. Why don't we have a tech giant or more of them?
Well, we have Ericsson. Ericsson is I think it's a pretty good example. I'm sure that what they're doing at Ericsson now, they are investing heavily in AI, and that will certainly have spin-off effects down the line.
That's a good point.
But that's just one, and they are not like Google in how much they can invest in this type of project. I think AstraZeneca, what they are doing is super interesting. They've been working at it now for several years. That's a super good example of leveraging AI and building expertise, not just in Sweden though, but still.
But is there something missing then? If you were to speak to the policymakers here, what could we do to potentially improve? Why is Sweden lagging behind? And potentially, some recent rankings say that Sweden is dropping down a bit in the rankings when it comes to AI adoption.
I don't know about the various consequences of policy decisions, but I imagine it might be very helpful to invest from the government side in super ambitious projects that JAS, the fighter plane development type scale of project, where with several billion per year investment in some important flagship projects for Sweden. So
that's an interesting idea here.
And that would put hundreds of people through the system of building something for real, which is important.
Apollo program.
Apollo program.
So we are talking about flagship projects or moonshot projects that in some ways...
Not necessarily moonshot in the sense that it tries to do something regarded as almost impossible.
No.
It could be AI for medicine, for example.
Yeah, but you do it... if you contrast that with... grants and funding from Vinnova, that it's
totally different thing.
There's a very, very small and snippetified.
It's so fragmented.
It's so
fragmented.
Which is a little bit like okay, it helps a lot of small startups to do a little bit. I'm a startup, and I'm like, I'm not going to be bothered with that. So what we Sweden need, moonshot is the wrong word. I fully agree. We need
super
ideas,
ambitious development projects.
Development project.
Development. Not research. Development.
Exactly.
Because we know how to do things. We talked about before that there are so many people out there that want to do AI, they see opportunities, and this is, we could identify at least one sector where the government could step in and just drive this, hopefully in a non-competitive, I don't know about EU regulations for supporting, but if it's a public sector like medicine, maybe we could do it.
Because then it comes to argument, in what way do we want the government to invest, and what should they stay out of? Should we have a government that becomes an incubator? Maybe not. We need them to fund, to build stuff. But I kind of like that simple idea.
They could order something. I don't know how it was done with the JAWS, the airplane.
JAWS is an interesting example, right? Because they are not trying to build the JAWS. They're ordering it. They're making a super ambitious project. They could order a Swedish cloud provider. We can, let's order a Swedish cloud provider.
Yes, that would be great. But it's not. But it's far from enough, because a cloud provider is. I mean, is that
that's just an example. But the distinction is, we have a super ambitious project and we order it.
Yeah.
We don't
order the next generation of support for medicine.
For medicine, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, we need a new fighter jet, so we're going to start a department and build a public sector fighter jet.
No. That would not. No, that would be destructive.
But you can understand how easy it is to fall in that trap with data and AI. That we need a department to now build digital infrastructure for a whole public sector. It's disaster, right?
There are several traps.
Yes.
Another trap would be to say, we need to support AI in Sweden. Let's build a house in Västerås and put 200 AI researchers there. That would be completely useless, I can tell you, because what will they be working on? You see what I mean? AI needs to be used now to do things.
But the tricky point is, do you know how close that is to reality of proposals?
I know that people are talking in these terms, and it's exactly the wrong idea, actually.
Why is it the wrong idea?
Because you build you build a little blue sky house where people don't understand what applications are.
They don't have the domain problem.
They have no domain problem or domain expertise. They don't know what to do. They will, in a blind way, go out and try to find their way and find.
It's like hens, chicken at things. It's not the focused effort.
No. That would be completely wasteful, and they would probably diverge in dozens of different little tracks. We need a focus. The same house, it might be fine, but working on the AI for medicine, and in a very structured and sort of project-led way.
Large-scale engineering investments.
I would like to see that. If it's possible and allowed, and etc., it would make a huge difference.
But the key word that I also pick out of this is not research, development.
No, we have enough research. One can always do more research. I love research.
But that's not our.
We're talking about what would make a huge difference for the Swedish ecosystem. And this would change everything, I think.
Because if you do a large project which is focused on development, it's not only that you get something, it's the spin-off effect you explained with Lal and all the people that come out of this that then understand what real infrastructure means, what AI compound system
even if
means.
The big project almost fails.
Yeah, because as long as we're doing research, we're working on the stupid simple model, and we're not building AI compound systems.
Exactly.
And we need to build compound AI systems. All this stuff, it needs to be real, right?
Yes.
This is development.
In every way. There are so many other things to think about.
Yes.
Cool.
By the way, cheers from Lalle.
Lalle.
Great.
Hi, Lalle.
Hi, Lalle.
Thanks for yesterday.
You've been we stopped talking about Elon. We talk about Lalle instead.
No. He's like Lalle is like a lighthouse for how what more people should be. I agree.
I fully agree.
Okay, and why should then the government invest in AI and engineering, large-scale engineering projects potentially? How do you see AI, and why it's important for Sweden's economic growth potentially to invest in AI-related engineering projects?
I think I'm not in a context where I need to convince everyone about the potential for both incremental and revolutionary change. in just about any sector. So of course we need to adopt AI. I mean, everyone is.
But it's a bit unfortunate because I think even today, this morning on TV4 News, they said AI doesn't provide value. It's
Who says?
TV4, some kind of journalist.
Yeah, probably very.
But it's generative
person.
AI, ChatGPT, and they are delusionized that they think that's enterprise grade. I mean, like the main problem with ChatGPT and all that is that they think this is AI, and has nothing to do with enterprise grade AI, in my opinion. Yeah, like
ChatGPT.
Yeah. I mean, like, so
I can make so much use of ChatGPT if you need to get used to what you can get from it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like to put it in production is so much more than just using a chat interface.
Yeah, but just for personal efficiency. I mean, just let's stop with that. I mean, how many people work with office type jobs and write text and read text? Now, I'm sure everyone can be. I'll pick a small number, 10% more efficient by using. This is a small number. I think it's higher in reality.
But it will have a big effect to any company, more or less. I mean, just out of the box. Yeah. And then if people get used to using copilots for software development, I'm sure you have discussed that or have heard the report. There are people who try to downplay that as well. Yeah, the gain is just 20%. I mean, 20% is huge in itself. Yes. But when you talk to people who I'm not a full-time software developer. I try it a bit and it feels great. But they say, I'm probably 2 times more efficient, maybe 3. So it's 100%.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane what it means for.
And imagine now we have our old companies chasing budgets for 10% more efficiency or 5% more efficiency in the old way of doing things. Yes. And now they are not investing in things that has maybe magnitude.
And this is only in an engineering discipline where we, for various reasons, have good models already out of the box by training on internet data. I mean, and fine-tuning on even more codes. I'm pretty sure this can be applied to more disciplines as well. We mentioned chemistry, etc., but lots of disciplines.
But I could go on into a huge rabbit hole here. Say then obviously there's something else wrong with this picture. It has nothing to do with the fluffy understanding that this has potential. It has nothing to do with sort of if we have money or not, because it has to do about know-how, how to organize, how to approach these things. Because if you knew what the hell you were doing, you would have made those budgets, you would have made those arguments and business cases a long time ago. So I don't
think it's obvious, actually. Even if we knew how to do it, it's not obvious you do the business case, and it's not obvious for the government, apparently, that they do the investments that would bring so much.
Not.
Right. I mean, so then there's a gap here. There's an AI divide in front of us that we think this is so obvious. It's stupid. Yeah. I'm just frustrated. Give me snooze so I can relax. And on the other hand, it's not clear at all. Like the story has not sunk in at all.
No, I think to be fair, there is still considerable uncertainty, and things have moved very fast in industry terms. And
we're in shock.
We were in shock and denial, maybe to some extent.
But I think there is a communication problem, at least here, that a lot of people don't understand the potential value that it can have, and we don't speak about the opportunity cost that we have spoken about so many times.
Opportunity cost.
If we also speak about medicine, as you said, not only can we make this staff potentially 10% or more efficient to do their work and help more people, but potentially it can literally save lives if we do the investment.
I think the impact would be mind-blowing on medicine, that you can diagnose things perfectly based on the knowledge we have today, as opposed to about all these people who have these tens of thousands of rare diagnoses and who need to go to the hospital, I don't know how many times, 30, 40 visits before they get the diagnosis.
The proper diagnosis.
The proper diagnosis. That's crazy.
And that's real. Like all the outlier diagnosis is
like that. I know. And we could change that.
quite easily.
Easily is almost the right word. Yeah, it's hard work, but it's easy in a conceptual sense.
In a conceptual sense, it's quite easy.
Yeah, just throw money at it and we can fix it.
I think there are so many companies right now that are, at least when they have the right management at least on board, are thinking, how can we, make use of this technology for our purpose in the company, and they're trying to find the best product to get started with, etc. But it wouldn't be nice to do that on a country level, so to speak, instead.
Of course.
Then if you say that if you invest X amount of money and you get double back in a couple of years, it would be kind of obvious that you should do that investment, right? And I think, the DIG had a report back in 2021, I'm sure. Yeah, I think 2021. Saving, basically they could save 140 billion Swedish crown per year in the health sector if they did this, but it didn't really help, it seemed. But it's strange.
But to me, this is not strange. I'm getting to a sense where I think we are all approaching it wrong in terms of the consulting industry and everything like that. And I'm a huge fan of Lalle's way of thinking around this. And he has a pet peeve he's been driving around. The fundamental gap in engineering of industrialized approaches with computing versus the craftsmanship we are doing here. Yeah. And where basically, he says, okay, I can help you accelerate on industrialized compute, but you know what, the main problem is the cultural aspects, the organizational aspects. So what I'm trying to get to here is that I think I get to a point where I meet people on a very high level and we talk about this and I don't come through to them because I think you actually don't need to start in strategy place with this because it's profound. You can go into, I can probably improve any process in your company with this. Yes. So what's the strategy? It's simple. There is no fucking strategy. It's just start using it and
start then at one end and
start at one end and then
do it right.
And then do it right. Then what is do it right? You need to have the right team, the competences, the way of working. Yeah. And if you start focusing on that, the strategies will come.
But you said something important there. You said you need the competence.
Yes.
So that gets us back to the page of the ecosystem, and we need to funnel more people through. I don't know, it's not a boot camp, but it's sort of a boot camp to work at a big place that already know how to do.
But the interesting thing is then, it's not enough to do that on an engineering level. No. You need to do the same on the middle manager level and the executive level. So you need the boot camp of data AI readiness across the board. Yeah.
And let's take one step back.
Yes.
Because it's easy when you start talking about, let's do AI for X, Y, Z, etc., the whole alphabet. And AI for medicine might, or for the government, or for automating whatever, might give us, we have a little AI solution here provided by startup X, and one here, and one here, and one here, and it's all, I don't know, feature hell with all sorts of little things that are not connected. I expect that what actually needs to happen at the same time as we start developing concrete solutions is also a rather turning companies inside out and making them digital at the core, and that the key, the core processes and state, etc., is sort of a digital factory, a digital machine that takes in, maybe I'm losing you now, but that takes in information and produces services or products or whatever. And then we have, think about the paper mill. It's a big physical machine, but we need to go to a future where all organizations, public sector or companies, are digital machines in this sense. And that has some kind of management, of course, to oversee and organize and structure and so on. And maybe a few operators, and maybe some people that complement still what this machine can do. But this is where we need to go. And I use it's probably not entirely correct, but I think about how Staffan Trouvé talks about what Recorded Future does as a sort of a blueprint for this, because they have this knowledge graph and they have these pipelines of information coming in and services being based on that and so on. Makes perfect sense to me. That's probably what all companies and organizations should look like.
I want to stop and say, I think this is profound. This is what I used to call a goosebump moment. I haven't said that for a while.
Okay. Do you have goosebumps?
I have goosebumps.
No, you are too experienced to get goosebumps.
No, I have goosebumps, right?
Okay.
Yeah, for real. And what you said now, I've been preaching for years. You know, if you look at the digital natives, so to speak, they have a DNA where this is part of the DNA, how to do data, how to do. So it makes sense. And then they innovate, and then they figure out what techniques and what they need. And we're still living in a paradigm, in my opinion, where the enterprise companies are still analog at the core and sugarcoating this. And they have not really figured out or understood themselves that we are 50% software company in the future. Like we have a domain, we might even have physical assets like Vattenfall, but in order to run this, we need the digital infrastructure at the same level of focus.
It's not just a software company that develops software, the company is software.
Yes, and this is
that's the difference. You see what I mean?
But
No,
this is the
elaborate. What do you mean?
No, but I mean it's a system. The human organization.
I fully agree.
Needs to be downplayed. That needs to be organized around the digital organization that produces the services, that takes in the information.
If you look at an enterprise as a complex adaptive systems, and you have agents, artificial or human, they need to work with perfect feedback loops, all of them, as one big complex adaptive system. And in this context now, it's all socio-technical, but it's also all digital, if you like. And this is a mind fuck in terms of traditional functional division of labor.
And companies try to sort of, how should I put it, re-engineer what they're doing. You buy a number of systems, previously not so much AI, but various systems, and then you retrofit an enterprise architecture, sort of an organization architecture, and you try to put it together and make it work. But
and in the end, we have Conway's law. So everybody, we organize in such a way so we get shit out of it. It's obvious.
Yeah, your words, but maybe.
No, but I mean, like it's obvious that organization matter and how we understand this at the core matters, because then we are framing the problem differently than what we're going after. So it's a reframing of.
So maybe the already software native organizations will simply eat the rest step by step. That's a perfectly viable scenario.
Perfectly viable scenario.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this? How do we make people understand this? I mean, I think you touched it partly before. If we were to go to a company and say you should start becoming more AI and data driven, then they can, put the technology at the hands of the people or do something, but it won't be sufficient, I guess. And we need to have proper change management in place to make the company really, make this work. Is that potentially what we need on a more like country level to make that happen? Or how do we make the same kind of transformation happening on a larger scale?
I don't know. I think, change is well known to be difficult.
Yes.
And so maybe the solution is not to focus on changing existing companies so much, but try to lead by example and have at least a few very shining examples that sort of show how this should be done. I don't know if this is compatible with what I said about the government investing. When I think about the government investing, that should be in the order of several billions per year, and even if that means increasing the national deficit, I mean it's
well worth the money.
Yeah, it's nothing in the long run.
But what I mean, some people at least say that if you want to have a proper like digital transformation of a company or an AI transformation of a company, the tech is one part, of course, and the org could be something, but change management could be like 60+% of the work to. Perhaps not change the organization per se that much to start with, but at least change the processes that you have and the understanding for the people how they should be using services that exists. Would you agree with that? That it's a lot of work to make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the inside of a RISE undergoing change, and I have super big respect for the challenge of changing anything. So I would probably. Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I had a big company, but I maybe think in terms of self-cannibalization to actually start a couple of core activities that are just done in a new way, and then you try to sort of transfer step by step the old activities
I mean, like
to that.
it's obvious.
It's hard to change. You need to
you
create
need to
something new.
You need to containerize the new.
Containerize is a good word.
In order for this to work, also to containerize risk of your experiments.
Yeah.
I think this is the chopping up of the problem into containerized bits is a key strategy here. I think somehow it's a revolution in know-how. So it starts with on a practice level.
Yes.
So if I had all the money in the world and I was a CEO and I said you want to become data driven, I would spend the first millions on a fundamental overhaul of practices and training in new practices. So basically, if we want them to act as a software company and they have never seen a software engineering practice, they don't even know what it is. They don't know what domain-driven design is. They don't know what agility, DevOps is, blah, 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 right? You need to start there. Otherwise, they don't have the reference or frame of mind to think what they should be doing differently. I think it's a major practice overhaul. And then containerize. I mean, like what I'm saying is containerize, change practices here, and let that spread.
To get the chance to think deeply about this, about some concrete case, would probably be very intellectually satisfying because it's so many different problems. It needs to be done incrementally, right?
Yes.
So, and do you do that?
Agile way, I guess.
Agile, whatever. Yeah, agile. I mean, you can't just do a big bang, flip from one day to the next.
I spent the last 10 years on this intellectual problem, and I think I think this particular problem, and I think there is so much research done to lean into on how to think about this. I mean, like you take innovation adoption cycle, the work from Joseph Schumpeter to Everett Rogers to Jeffrey Moore, basically lays out a fundamental view of innovation to adoption, what that is all about. If you take that simple view set and then apply that into a company, and you understand that any transformation is used as long sequence of adoption events, many small events, compounding effects. This is already in the books, but no one is applying it in terms of...
But are these theories or experiences applicable to disruptive change of the nature that this might involve?
I think so.
You think so? Okay.
Because if you take Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, right? It's literally written from a startup to hyperscaler perspective. So how do you start from scratch? Spotify, you build a product, you beta test it, you get the beta clients, innovators. The major shift is how you do the crossing the chasm, how you go from innovators, early adopter to early majority, late majority. We've heard this before, right? If you think about that, it's more applicable and written on a macro market scale, how you build companies. But if I take that logic and put that in Scania, completely applicable in terms of intrapreneurship instead of entrepreneurship. My hypothesis.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe our listeners want to hear something about AI.
Yeah.
but this is what is necessary to make AI happen, probably. This kind of thinking that you are talking about.
Should we take a little bit different topic, perhaps? We started speaking about funding a bit, and that's a big problem that we are lacking, at least in some aspects, the funding to do it.
I mean, there is funding here and there, but it's too fragmented compared to what Sweden might need to accelerate.
How does it work at works? Can you just elaborate? How do you raise money, so to speak, for different projects or for collaborations with other companies? You get money from companies, right? And from the state?
Yeah. We have
just describe how it works.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So we have a bit of basic funding, which is maybe 20% of the total. That is needed just to have the freedom to direct what we do. Otherwise, we are completely funded by... so we have a fairly large part of RISE is from the former SP, so it's testing, inspection, certification activities. Statens Provningsanstalt. That is... some part of what we do. Otherwise, we have commission projects, public funding, the whole shebang.
How much is EU funding versus Swedish
I don't know
funding?
the numbers, and it's so different in different types of departments. I'm sorry, but
that is you're right.
But it's interesting.
But maybe it's I don't know. I'm just picking a number out of the air. Maybe it's EU might be 15-20% in our department. That's just an imagined number.
I guess you, during your few years or extremely large number of years at
come
RISE,
on, give me a break.
have been part of one or two EU funding projects as well, or applications, right? What do you think about the application process for EU?
The application process. I started my journey at the then 6 by jumping headfirst into a EU project and working that. That was great as a social process and getting people to get to know each other. And I think that was a major objective also of this program. And then I co-wrote, or at least organized, a proposal just after that. I think the process was still fairly simple then. And after that, and then I sort of semi-led that project as I was too junior to do it formally, but I did a lot of the coordination, as it's called. After that, I have been able to stay away from being directly involved in writing. Exactly.
But maybe connecting this, we had Tor here as a guest from HPC.
Yes.
And now we have coming up the whole all the works and grants and funding around AI factories.
Exactly.
How will you because then we have HPC and the competence center around HPC, and now we have the competence center around AI. Will you collaborate if you have the title AI factory? This is quite interesting, right? Because you have a lot of strengths here in RISE.
I mean, we are part of an application being prepared together with others. Yeah. Of course.
No. So how does that work then? Because then basically you have one center, but in order to write that application, you need to now fund the. Should I use the word consortium or part? You need to find the right ingredients in that proposal with several actors, I assume, or can you do it on your own? No.
You work with several in Sweden and otherwise. Of course. And the center as such is not a body in this. It's RISE, which is a partner.
Cool. And I guess most of the projects are a bit more engineering focused, or are there some projects that are a bit more like base research or foundational research kind of projects as well?
I would say we have the full spectrum of projects, and for PhD students that we have, we of course need to give them fairly base research. It's not always applicable for computer science, as you know, that you do something, you develop a new cool thing which is sort of basic research, and then you just turn around and start a company on using that technology. I mean, so it's not the traditional TRL levels don't apply straightforwardly.
I was going to ask you about the TRL levels. What levels you're
Some people
on.
Use that term. I haven't used it so much.
No.
Okay, but you do some, or the PhD project, I guess, is a bit more basic research kind of.
And that is at least for us within computer. I mean, so I mentioned before that at RISE we take the necessary positions that complement what other actors do in different fields. In computer science, that means being fairly cutting edge in our research, because we have lots of good consultancy companies, etc., that take other positions. So we are applied, but with bleeding edge knowledge.
But in order to also humor the real AI folks, could we just elaborate a little bit on what you would consider your key lighthouse projects or research, things that you're really proud of, or that you think is super interesting, super sexy, that is selling your house, so to speak.
Selling my house. So we are. At any point in time, we did some kind of inventory. We found that we are probably running around 150 projects with more or less AI content at RISE. So I mean, more or less. So some less, some more. And my ability to keep up with what everyone is doing is limited, but I'll mention a couple of examples that I have at least close to myself on my radar, in front of my nose. So that's probably the best metaphor here. No, so we are working with Ericsson. I can mention that. I asked if I could, not for this specific, but more generally, they are building a Copilot for their own proprietary hardware and software. They have their own little environment that is not well covered in its sort of the type of architecture and the programming models that they use by the public co-pilots. So we're doing that and have a...
Just elaborate a bit more. Is it more type of like internal chatbot kind of solution working for their kind of...
No, it's about code generation.
Co-pilot code generation for telco applicable coding of radio-based stations. And roaming and all those.
I can tell you that if they succeed with that, with our hopefully valuable help, that will have a huge impact on.
So they are making a custom co-pilot applicable for radio-based stations, and
every company which is in a similar position should do that, of course. But
of this scale and size required to think about that. But for them, of course.
For them, of course.
For them, of course.
Interesting.
Super interesting.
And can you share any technical details about that?
Stop.
For two reasons. I am blessed with a lack of knowledge of technical details, and I couldn't tell you anyway. So
that's usually the excuse. But okay.
We stick with that excuse.
Good. Let's mention another one. It's a pretty cool one, which we often bring up as an example. So we've been working for a very long time on monitoring ship movements initially in the Baltic together with the Swedish Coast Guard, and they put a system into operation. So you have radar and probably also what is called AIS information and so on and so forth, all the information you have. And that reason was initially to help talk to ships that seem to be maybe running aground or something like that. Recently, this has been expanded in 2 subsequent EU projects and to the Arctic seas more generally, and now with the focus on also monitoring potential illegal activities, so companies that might be doing nasty things with underwater infrastructure, which was, as you know, became important recently, but illegal fishing, dumping,
waste,
tanks, waste, etc. And this is a very cool application. And although again I am blessed with a lack of knowledge of exactly what they do, I know that it combines sort of data-driven and more rule-based methods, since it's a very complex undertaking.
What kind of sensor data do they make use of?
Yeah, I wish I knew exactly. But,
the excuse comes again. Okay.
No, but it's a sad truth actually.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds super cool and important and apt for this time.
I can mention more examples if you want.
Please.
Yeah, please.
A rather under. I mean, we talk about sound in the context of language and music, but there are so many sounds. And AI for sound has at least the same potential as any other modality, so we're working a lot on that. An example is monitoring wildlife, and there is commercial interest, so companies like, again, Vattenfall that I mentioned, our sibling, which is just bigger than us, needs to monitor the English term for this is capercaillie. Do you know what that is? Tjäder. Okay. So a Swedish large fowl.
Bird.
Or not just Swedish, northern hemisphere. So apparently they need to monitor those around wind farms and understand the impact of wind farms on wildlife. And also they monitor fish. We are not into that, but using computer vision, etc., etc.
Trying to understand why and what the impact of wind farms could be, but
no, but the fish. I used to work at Vattenfall.
You did?
Yes, for many years.
Cool.
So I mean, like there's a lot of cool projects going on the laxtrappor. And all
I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
That's great. Okay, so that's one thing. General area, and more generally also monitoring, computer vision for satellite images. Lots of work on that for various applications.
I have some friends that's been in projects quite for some time with exploring things with Boliden and Scania in transportation and mining and stuff like that.
There are so many things.
There are so many things.
There are so many things. I mean, if I could maybe bring a list and then go through them. I'll mention just one more thing because I think I don't know, this sort of tickles my own imagination, the role of AI of this kind in research, in scientific endeavors. And so one very cool project we have is collaboration with very nice materials researchers in Uppsala. So we have a PhD student who is working on methods to accelerate materials development.
Speed up the design and
to speed up the exploration of potential materials for solar cells. It's more general, actually. It's sort of, you use, I think it's called a sputtering machine, and you layer atom-thin layers and produce cool materials. But
what's the data and AI angle in this? The simulations?
I am blessed with a lack of details, but I think it has to do with optimizing the experimental design.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a question, so I'm just going to read it. This is for Sverker. Do we need more in-house applied research and development budget in enterprises, or does Sweden need smaller, fast-paced outlets, startups making building blocks that those companies can integrate? And the second question is, what is the adoption rate of AI/ML in Swedish enterprises versus the rest of the Europe, Nordics? I think that we can take the first one, the second one.
The second one is very difficult. I have no numbers about that at all, so I couldn't say. But yeah, I guess both are needed. I mean, you can't. It's hard to seriously source AI components and expertise if you don't have it in-house. So whichever way, you need a combination.
I think that's the answer, because if you don't have any critical mass internally, you have no directional relationship with who to collaborate with.
No.
I guess a combination of the two is good.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can't see snake oil.
Exactly.
What is snake oil? What is real?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
there's so much snake oil.
Yeah, right now it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would actually start from the internal to some degree, but then think about what should we really be good at internally and how should we collaborate. But if you don't have anything internally, you cannot spot snake oil. I think is a good summary.
Yeah.
Like it.
Should we do the other one about, I guess, Sweden's, how is ranked or compared to other European countries, or what was it?
It's more about the
adoption of machine learning.
Yeah, adoption of machine learning and AI in Sweden versus the rest of Europe, Nordics. But I think there is actually a ranking about this, and there is a report actually which is done by Silo, which is the AI in the Nordics.
Yes, Silo.
And then there is another one from the European Commission that is going out where it ranks basically. It's not this one. I can try to find it actually, so we can come back to that a little bit later on.
But I think this is a very, very tricky question, because even in the large enterprises, the main problem to me is that it's in small, you can be super mature, but it's in pockets. So it's really about, can you find cutting edge? Yes. What is the average on enterprise scale adoption? So you get very, very different understandings and views of any company in Sweden of a large size today, I would argue. So it's not widely spread, in my opinion, still.
But it was something published recently, and it actually, if you just take the trend at least, is that Sweden is actually trending down compared to other countries. So that's.
You mean in relative terms, not keeping up?
No, compared to other countries, it's apparently being ranked lower in terms of AI adoption, if I recall correctly.
Ouch, that's bad.
But if you find something, Goran, that would be interesting.
I know that there was a European Commission was doing what is called last year. I know that for fact. Whoever did this, let me just share the screen as well for the viewers. Let's see if I can.
This is the ISOC data set. This is a tricky one.
But this is a very strange, what are we measuring here?
Exactly.
What is the structure of the sizes of the companies? How many employees do they involve in blah, blah, blah?
And what techniques are we talking about here?
Exactly.
It's tricky because they don't actually measure that across the organizations. Usually when you find statistics like this is how much the European countries are investing actually in AI, and that can be in a research, that can be in a governmental sector, and etc. But it's very hard. And
I find this, what you pointed out, there's so many dimensions in here to compare apples with apples. So it's really
But
tricky.
I think the investment part is not that bad of an indicator. I wish we had more, but just saying that the company or private investments in AI is going.
There was another one called the AI Index, I think.
No, that's Stanford. Stanford had that. But I don't think they have on country level.
I can steelman you on why investment is not a good metric. I mean, I think it's one metric that is useful to look at, but it's a little bit like politically we have always used this in our political debates. Are we investing so much and so much in whatever it's crime or whatever? And then please, could we understand what you are doing? Is it any useful? Is it a wasteful? In the terms of being green, when I was at Vattenfall, someone actually did commission a very, very expensive report to understand from the different budget propositions from the different parties, which one has the biggest CO2 impact. Okay, so then you need to not only understand how much they're investing, but if they're investing in scooters, electric scooters in Stockholm for 2 billion, or if they're doing something else. Yeah. And then, if I put it like this, Miljöpartiet was not the most aggressive for CO2 reduction, which is so this is my steel manning.
Obviously, you want to measure the value. The problem is really you can't get it. So if you don't have anything else, it's not.
It's an indicator.
It's not a useless metric.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Not useless.
Sorry, it should be.
It's not useless, but it's how useful is it?
Yeah. True. We wish we could do it better, but if you don't have anything, it's better than anything.
It's better than anything.
Yeah,
I agree.
Or nothing. Sorry. I'm thinking, but you actually mentioned some project before. I think something you played around with Google NotebookLM, right?
I did quite a lot, actually.
Yeah. Ooh. Perhaps you can start by just explaining what is it.
Well, I haven't gotten into it. It seems to be originally conceived as a kind of service or experimental service where you can upload various documents and then have a range of services. You can get sort of a study guide, frequently asked questions, summary, blah, blah, blah from that material. And I guess that's useful enough, but that never came on my radar. But what really caught people's attention was this new feature called Audio Overview. Was that the rather strange
weird
name of that feature that takes the same material and produces a podcast?
I think it's a podcast feature.
It is. It should be called a podcast, and it is a podcast. And it's immediately mind blowing how great it is, how good it sounds, and so on. What I discovered, of course, is that if I asked ChatGPT to produce sort of a script for a podcast, it does actually a quite good job just in itself. So I think the most impressive feature of NotebookLM is the very natural sounding sound. Yeah, and how they mix, like you did now, a little bit of intervention and sort of.
But just to get people an understanding of how it works. I mean,
please.
You just upload some kind of document, as you say, a PDF or some kind of piece of text. I tried actually just my CV.
I listened to that.
Oh, I listened to that as well.
That was so fun.
And as I replied when you mentioned it, this shameless self-promotion is what it produced.
I didn't publish it anywhere, but just for you. But yes.
But an American flavored,
extremely bloated kind of.
Academic leave.
Exactly. No. This is the great story of. No, it didn't say like that, but
it did.
Sort of.
But in short, basically, you upload some piece of text, and then you get basically two people discussing in like a podcast setting that piece of text.
A man and a woman.
Yeah, and a man and a woman. And
with very peppy American voices.
Yeah, and they are excited. About,
Excited and enthusiastic. Yes.
They are enthusiastic, and they build up a cliffhanger, and so they're doing it like.
And make jokes.
They make
and
amazing.
also it's
it is amazing.
It's not
amazing.
just the text-to-speech kind of traditional AI voice that operates one word at a time. It literally actually has a lot of inflections and way of
It's
speaking
fantastic.
Yes,
that is completely...
And the filler words and the storytelling. I mean, like they take it to. I mean, like I think they squeezed out like 7 or 10 minutes podcasting out of 2 pages of a 1-page resume. That's amazing. Bullshit machine. That really strings everything together. And it's not bullshit in the sense that it's wrong or anything like that, but it's the way that it's to storytelling.
And what surprised me a bit was that it doesn't only take the text into account, but also the images in the document. Did you notice that?
No. This is
so I think I sent you the link to our State of AI by Rice report. And on the sort of second page there is me. I should mention the point of this report is also to use imagery that is AI generated and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, So it was a picture of me and with a cat that had been edited in. And they commented on this and in a very sort of humoristic way. And okay, great.
But it's amazing.
It's really amazing. And now you can also throw in, and I tested this today, YouTube videos. And
yeah, right. I saw that as well.
YouTube videos that they make a podcast.
And they make a podcast of it.
We could put our podcast into the NotebookLM and have them have a podcast about the podcast.
Yeah,
actually,
a meta podcast. That is so great.
This is a meta podcast.
And maybe people will be more eager to more popular.
So when we go to an American
shorter,
market, shorter,
and more
perky.
More perky is the word.
This is crazy.
Actually, this is our go-to-market for America.
I actually
for
want to try that tomorrow. Let's see if I can work. But just to bury the thing about like Sweden versus the rest of the European countries. This is from 2023 from European Parliament. So there is no ranking there, but it seems like Sweden is on number 5. So we're talking about 62.5 billion invested from US. China is 7.3 billion.
This
and
is private
Sweden,
investment.
yeah, this is and Sweden 1.8 on 5th place after Germany and United Kingdom. And we are talking about private investments in AI by country. But this is also
this is WASP.
Not normalized by population.
Yeah.
So we are in fact probably
that's surprisingly high.
almost first.
Per capita would be amazing.
Would be amazing.
From my perspective, now traveling to all of these conferences and etc., doing them, I think that when we're talking about maturity of AI and the topics that we're discussing in Sweden and on data innovation, etc., I think that we are actually quite good. Yeah,
nice.
Quite good. Because if we remove the Silicon Valley from this equation, the discussions that they are having in UK and US, it will be pretty much similar to what we are having here. We are a little bit slower in decision-making process because we have this FICA decision-making process, right? So it takes longer time for us to basically get into the innovation process. But I think that we are quite good.
But I think I then flip it and say if this could also potentially be a dangerous, we are good, pat ourselves on the back, when in reality, are we getting adoption from these investments? Are we getting it into the ground? Are we really changing our companies? Or is this innovation theater? I mean, we don't know that when you look at that.
Yeah, but the interesting fact is because I had a news prepared for day. If you look at it's not actually only in Sweden. You have in majority of the countries, you have basically lack of delivering value with AI as a main problem. It doesn't matter where it is, right? Because according to this research that Accenture actually did, it was less than 2% of everybody who has invested in generative AI are actually using it, or they have they have a full stack generative AI installation. Infrastructure and everything else. So it's not that we are that bad at all. I don't think so. We just basically need to leapfrog a little bit more so we can be even better.
Good.
But just a reflection here. There is also a matter of the distribution of the funding and how many of these units of funding that are sort of at a critical level to allow that enterprise to really move forward.
I think this is a key point.
Yeah.
Because if you look at United States, 62.5 million, it looks like US is fantastic. But if you look at that per capita, if you look at that per state, you will find that there's a couple of states where the majority of this money goes to, and there's a couple of companies where the majority is. Yeah.
But it sounds like a small number. It's billion, 62 billion euros.
Sounds wrong.
It sounds completely wrong. I mean, just Sam Altman is tossing around bigger numbers than that.
Yes.
Okay, not necessarily in realized
if we include all the compute infrastructure being invested in, that by itself would supersede that number. So it's something wrong with that number.
No.
So exactly.
It is from the Stanford University, so you shouldn't be that much off.
No, the tricky one is you need to really dig into the numbers. Obviously, compute infrastructure is not in that number. It can't be. I mean, like just from the numbers we look at, it cannot have. But the Nvidia. if you look at investments in chips from Nvidia alone, that is a bigger number than that.
Anyway,
okay,
one company for sure.
We can look at more numbers later, perhaps. But it's interesting. I was just thinking to continue on the NotebookLM and just speaking about some more cool like AI. Applications and
but let me say just one more thing about NotebookLM. So pretty much as I've done with ChatGPT and everything, I use it to digest material.
You do?
So I've used it several times. This rather boring Draghi report, you saw that? I threw that in and listened to 10 minutes, as you said, a perky summary of the main points, and that was delightful compared to having to wade through it. And I think the main points came through anyway. Of course, as you know, since you've tried it, it's sort of slightly superficial, but still.
But you can then basically digest a lot of more reading, being out jogging and running, and having something.
And in an more entertaining way.
I get it.
You don't have to, as humans, write in a entertaining way.
But can I ask you?
No, but the AI can do it for us.
Can I ask you, as experts, do we have any understanding of the techniques applied to get to there?
I think in the next topic we'll come there.
To get to where? To
if you look under the hood of this brilliant
particular brilliant,
So what are the techniques? Because once again, it's not just one thing; it's a compound.
Well, I think my little it's too little to be called an experiment, but asking ChatGPT to generate a humorist or a nice sort of bantering script for a podcast, that showed that it does as good a job with the actual
transcript,
the spoken content, but the voice generation, the voices, that was
it hasn't been
at the next level
much. No. There are of course a lot of text to speech, but this is not text to speech. This is kind of semantical kind of.
This is something else.
No, it's something else. Yes.
And so basically, then, if you want to pick apart the techniques here, okay, the text side, the transcript side, we get to fairly fast because it's something similar to what we have seen in the LLMs. The voice stuff, what is happening here? What is really going on there?
Yeah, could be something connected to the diffusion approaches for generating images and using it for audio, but who knows? But I'm coming there with the next topic actually. So
cool.
if we
Let's go there.
could, because it's also connected to the NotebookLM, and we have a number of new applications coming out from both OpenAI and Google, which is the advanced voice mode that OpenAI has, and now Google actually released in Europe even, I think, or I tried it at least, it worked for me, the Gemini Live. So to just describe briefly, if you use the advanced voice mode, which is not released in Europe, similar to Meta's models, is not released in Europe because of regulation issues. But if you use the advanced voice mode, it is insanely good. Have you seen?
No, tell me. I mean, I know about it, but I haven't really.
ChatGPT advanced. I tried it. As I said, I managed to get it to work via VPN 2 days ago, but then that road was closed. I don't know.
So elaborate a little bit more. What is the experience?
You can perhaps try.
I didn't try it in depth. I asked it to speak in different voices, and
there's a lot of image or videos out there. So I mean, it can do stuff like you can ask it to please help me to learn Chinese, and then you say the Chinese text and it corrects you. Please phrase it like this instead, and it can really hear how you are phrasing things and say does it pronounce it correctly. It can do stuff like we asked it to do a bedtime story for my kid, and while doing the bedtime story in style with very like calming kind of bedtime story, also add some kind of sound effects like whooshing if it's like water and stuff, and it can
Cool.
not only do speech, it can really also add like whoosh and stuff like that, and it can sing, and it can do so many other things that is not just pure speech as well. And it sounds amazingly good. It's real time. You can interrupt at any point and start to have a discussion with it. And I'm really impressed, with what that can do. If you go to Gemini though, it is not as impressive. But at least it is released in Europe, so we have to, make use of that. But that doesn't have the. It's very clear that Gemini Live. So live is basically you can press a button and you speak to it, and you can interrupt it, and you can ask question, and you can have a dialogue. It's actually a very nice kind of user interface, where you don't have to text anymore. You just speak and you interrupt and have a discussion, and that's nice. However, that's very clearly from text land, so from text space. It only reads the words. It cannot change speak in the tone of Gothenburg voice or something. And if you ask it to sing, it won't do it. It says it will. I'm singing now, and but it's not. And you can ask it to do like a bedtime story. There is a person on YouTube who did the same. It compared basically the OpenAI advanced voice mode to live. I mean, if you ask to sing, it starts to say, singing voice, blah blah blah. Now doing this, and if you do it in OpenAI, it's la 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 la. It properly do it. I mean, it can do more than text, but Gemini Live is pure text. It's very clear, even though it thinks it's singing, but it's not. Anyway, it's kind of amazing, and this, of course, will be a very useful kind of interface for humans to machines in the future. Imagine sitting in a car or speaking to Spotify or whatnot. But yeah, please.
No, just should we be surprised about this? I mean, it's just a straightforward extrapolation. I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek with this because it's great. NotebookLM, what it does is great, but if someone asks me, okay, so could you do that? Yeah, just throw a bit of money on it and you can do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes people, I get a bit annoyed when people are not excited about the amazing AI progress that we have, It's so simple, AI today. You just put data into it and you have a result. No, it's not that simple. And it is surprising, I would say, that these kind of large language models and these large foundational models that works with N modality actually works. That is surprising in itself, at least to me.
In some basic way, it continues to be amazing and surprising. But given that we have accepted the progress that we have already seen, at least I am perfectly ready to extrapolate rather a long way from what we have today.
If you take kids or something that
just investing,
or people that haven't seen the whole history of AI, now they assume that if it doesn't sound perfectly, if it doesn't generate perfect text or do whatever, they are annoyed with it and disappointed with it. I'm still amazed when I see this kind of improvements happening.
But when I reflect to this conversation here, I think that these two standpoints are super valid. Like this, this is amazing stuff. But I think the profound, frustration or question that comes out of this, if you see this happening now and people are just doing it, experimenting, and it's this good, you need to understand that every single, computer interface should be questioned within the next 5 years.
And not just computer.
Every single interface can...
You're a vacuum cleaner. I mean, there's nothing to argue against everything being voice controlled.
And this then makes me wonder why we have such a hard time innovating. I mean, because the innovation here is done on techniques, and clearly the techniques works. And now it's up to us to put them into systems and into real products and use it. And for me, it's not if, it's only questions of when that is left now, and if you want to be part of that game or not. And I still don't understand why we have such a hard time then, as a society, starting to use it more and more. Maybe it's used the catch-up effect here that we are not ready
I think
for it.
yes, catch-up effect. I mean, so there is a substantial amount of investment being made in providing these components that are then very easy to use. So I'm sure you are following all these tinkerers out there who toss together cool prototypes and doing this and that, and using replit.com to just, I made this AI application just in 15 minutes. I think the ketchup will come out of the bottle to some extent.
Because it is a topic now that this will seep into everything. It's obvious that it will, but it's more about how our normal companies can
which is not, of course, not exactly the same thing as a fundamental AI transformation of the company's products. I mean, this is lipstick on the pig a little bit if you only sort of adopt speech interfaces, for example.
Yeah, but I think the profound topic is that if you have been around the block for a couple of years, we understand that this is now happening on so many different levels in terms of compute infrastructure, in terms of how we manage data. You talked about knowledge graphs, you talked about recorded future example. So all these different components are now coming there to do something that is completely revolutionizing every part of it. And the proof in the pudding that sort of is shown in media and that everybody can relate to is the end user's interface. But make no mistake, everything is happening on all levels here. So if we can understand that, then it's not putting makeup on a pig anymore. But if you only do that part, yes, it is, of course. But I think this is what is holding us back. You're circling back to that question, right? If it's the money, if it's the know-how, I don't know. I always end up back to why aren't we doing more? Why isn't it going faster? For me, that's the fundamental question now. That there's
it's already going so fast. I mean, it takes time for something to come out as a product and to change.
It might be that it's an exponential process that is just under the radar.
Yeah, most likely that's
could
what
be,
happens.
and that will just say boom in n months or years.
Yeah.
Well, it will be an exciting time coming years for sure. And if we were to just go a bit more thinking a bit further ahead, what would happen in coming years and the advances we are seeing with, for example, O1, etc. And perhaps you should go agentic as well. I think you're both very engaged in that, and so am I. But perhaps we could start with just the O1 kind of direction of AI models. So what's your thinking there? I mean, my way to usually describe this is usually to say that we have the traditional language model at least that have a huge amount of knowledge, much more than any human ever can. And then we have the traditional reasoning models like AlphaZero, AlphaGo that can beat any human easily in chess or Go and games like that. But they are very narrow, so they are not general and doesn't have any knowledge. So they're really good at reasoning, really bad at knowledge. And one other interesting part of this, I think, is that AlphaZero, for example, trained without any human data at all. So it's all generated data by itself. Now, if O1 is this kind of self-taught reasoner kind of approach, which are generating their own data, this is actually going exactly this direction. So that means that now the models are generating their own data, can go beyond the human knowledge because it's no longer dependent on human data to be trained, and then start to add, combine the reasoning power of traditional AlphaZero to the knowledge that language models had. Would you agree with that description, or do you think that's a good way to describe it?
Yes, but I'm not sure that convinced that yet. O1 self-taught reasoning, I don't know exactly what O1 does. I mean, that's speculation.
No, yeah, of course.
But that self-taught reasoning, that you can bootstrap it entirely on just the human data. I mean, I think it's a super important step from the underlying language model. What does it do? It extrapolates text. It's just so happened that if you prompted this correctly, it might actually answer questions as a byproduct of extending text. And then we trained it specifically to answer questions, so as to do that more reliably. Okay, so then we have ChatGPT, and that leverages, of course, lots of data that sort of has this relationship between questions and answers and so on. And similarly, we started exploring prompting techniques that did chain of thought and sort of reasoning, which just happened to be reflected in the text we have already trained on. And then we can polish that further with various techniques. I think we need to, which is great. I think it's a sort of a quantum leap to a completely new type of model, or way of thinking about the model.
Right.
It's sort of we are stepping onto new abstraction levels
Yes.
of what we're doing.
Yes.
I think we need to, some reasoning patterns have logical correct answers that you can produce synthetic data, for example. But let's see how we need to train these models going forward. I'm not sure you can just extrapolate from the internet mass of text the reasoning patterns there. I think we need to add more.
But let me see if I can. I want to test a line of thought here with you. What the trajectory is here. So you know, looking around the corners, seeing the implication chain of what we're talking about here. So to me, this year we started to see different agentic workflows, and you saw Andrew Ng doing simple experiments with 4.0 and getting much better results by taking an agentic scaffolding around the same large language model, agentic. And now we see if it's self-taught reasoning approaches, but what I think you said is the correct analysis, is that we are moving up in abstraction level in terms of how we are working with problems and how the machines can automate and how AIs can help us. So for me, when you move up in abstraction level, it simply means we're going from one simple task to now we put goals or problems that they can be decomposed into steps. First question, is this the general trajectory? Can we assume that this trajectory, we have just seen the very starting point, that our systems will becoming more and more advanced, so we are moving in abstraction levels like this? Will this trend go away? I think it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. I think I use the term abstraction levels, and I don't know if it's exactly the correct one. I mean, we are sort of implementing reasoning in a substrate that is a language model. So it's a generic prediction engine. And if we implement reasoning, I don't see what the next step is, but on the other hand, I didn't see O1 coming exactly either. So
No,
I think we need additional components to climb up towards.
Do you have any thoughts what that could be?
We need more mental state, I think, somehow. More memory. I mean, more short-term memory or whatever it is that we use to maintain sort of
the world modeling.
Thoughts. We need world modeling, but that, I think, to some extent can sort of the basis for that is part of the general transformer model, so to speak. But we need to keep in our heads what is the current state.
Yes.
When I turn around and oops, sorry. Yes, Anders is still there, and so on.
The classical ODA: observe, orient, decide, act.
Yeah, maybe, but mental state in a more general sense. More.
And I have to add, I like the Jan LeCun kind of JEPA approach. Have you seen that? The John? Okay, we don't need to go in. I think we've spoken about it so much, but.
No, but if I don't go into the techniques, but I want to understand a general trend, so I then can build a mental model for what do we need to think about when we organize business or when we build systems. And I have like a bet. Data, what can we observe? What is the insight here? What is our beliefs and bets? So I put up a belief that I think we are going in whatever techniques we are figuring out. We are on a trajectory that humans will be working on a higher and higher abstraction layer on bigger problems, and the systems and machines will help us. So there's a very interesting phenomenon happening then, because the fundamental human-machine interaction is different. You very soon get to a principal-agent relationship with your machine. like you're the principal, you prompt, he's the agent, he's doing the work. This is a very different type of relationship to how we have had relationships to our systems in the past. And if this is where we're going, that has fairly big implications for how we define agency of the AI and understanding agency of the human or the teams and how they are aligned, or the potential risk when they are not aligned. So I'm on a trajectory here where what fuck ups, what do we need to change in terms of thinking around this?
It's at least still agency? The case that you need to know your stuff to use, let's say, ChatGPT efficiently.
Yeah.
You need to recognize good output from bad output. So you need to be an expert already. So you are not, in fact, at a higher level of abstraction when interacting with ChatGPT. It might appear so. You can, for a little while, get by saying something at a higher level, and it produces something, let's say, code, and you run that. But if you don't, if you aren't an expert capable of verifying that the code is okay, you are.
But this
is interesting to see, because if we don't get over that threshold so that we can actually fully trust the output of the AI, it will enter an interesting situation where the people who are already experts in whatever it is, software development, will put everyone else out of the job who is on a career track of actually learning to become experts. And so in a little while we will have no sort of junior future experts who can handle this beast. This is just a sort of imagined scenario.
But you can think, I think, in two ways here. One, or some people say that, okay, in the future when we have this kind of amazing AI system that we can have doing the advanced stuff, I need to know less. And I think that's the opposite, actually.
Currently, definitely.
And that means basically that we have to learn more than we did in the past to be able to be a useful person, at least. But with AI we can learn more as well. But it still means that we need to actually raise our game as humans, and we can with AI's help. But it's not that we can reduce or remove that need for us to learn more. We need to learn even more in the future, I would say.
Yeah, but let's take a very concrete example, because I think this is quite profound. So let's say now I want to build an AI in a function in an organization. Let's call it sales. And I want to have some sort of AI helping me plan my I'm not going to go into detail, but what you are saying now is that on the one hand side, the team has only had sort of sales competence before, and ultimately our domain experts know this, and now we want to do math or whatever to understand with data and AI how we can automate route planning, whatever. But what you're saying now, in order for the foreseeable future, we actually need to have more competence. Maybe we need to be a team. There needs to be some AI experts overseeing or quality checking and understanding what the AI is doing. So for me, this is a huge topic around the agency of what is the scope of the more now complex AI system doing in terms of planning and sequencing in relation to a human in the loop using that AI as a team member. And within that team that is using that as a team member, you need to have the people that might be the users of that data, but you kind of need to have people in that team who actually understands a little bit more under the hood if something is completely haywire.
And you need a long-term plan for making sure that, as a company at least, or a big company, that you always have experts of this kind who have that deep understanding, who can have that role. And that has traditionally been that you're a junior team member who would do what the AI now does. And that's sort of, I remember a comparison here. I think it's correct that when car companies started having robots paint cars, at least some companies put in a production line with human painters just to maintain the understanding of what's actually going on and funny. Who can program the robots in the correct way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who can program the robot?
Yeah.
So if we're going on this abstraction journey now, and we think that's the future, techniques will come, and we have only seen it improve, so we can assume it's going to be solved. Then how we organize teams and teams composition and the agency around them to able to work with these machines, this will be impactful, because if you have a business organization today where you have a functional division of labor, where you only have one set of competencies, sales over here, more technical competence or data competence sits over here, they are not really in a state to have agency around what the AI can do. So you kind of need to know what we have learned, like how do you build a cross-functional team, how do you build product teams. That becomes kind of important in the core business if you're going to go the software route.
Depending on what happens with AI then. So, I mean, maybe in 10 years, the AI is perfectly reliable. You can trust it as a human expert, and it's fine.
I mean, I think
and then you don't need to be an expert, and then you have really reached that.
Then you're the next
fundamental step.
Abstraction.
Yes, but
I mean,
and that should happen. But the question is when.
But we will have a transition stage for sure.
For sure.
I mean, it could go in the direction that we hear, Sam Altman speaking about. I heard someone saying they have a bet, saying, what year will we have the first single-person unicorn company coming along?
That's an interesting thought experiment, actually.
There's been unicorns with I think 10 people or 16 or something. I think Instagram was 16 or something. I don't know. But anyway, a single person.
I guess some kind of power law or something like that will suggest that there will always be sort of unicorn companies. But I'm just also seeing a future where so many people are doing so many things that,
yes.
Who can attract that kind of attention to become a unicorn?
I'd call it a 100K company then. But anyway, the point is that humans take on a broader set of tasks, and they perhaps more deal with the overarching goal rather than the specific details, which is delegated to a set of AI agents instead.
But I think this is back to what we discussed. There's a transition phase where even you can build a 5. For me, it's plausible to build a 3-man or 5-man unicorn today. Someone who has to take. We need one CTO, we need one CPO, and we need one sales. Founder sales. So there are some key tasks to be done, right? But you can probably almost get away with that right now if someone is really proficient in the technology.
But I think this is still, aiming too low. Why not a 0%?
Yes, I know.
No, but really.
I do, absolutely, yeah. So,
you invest some money and you tell the agents to go and do it.
It's a bit more unethical, perhaps.
No, I don't think so.
Now we're getting this philosophically. That's a very interesting.
I'm sure.
Why not?
The only people left are the investors.
They could be automated. I hope they can as well.
Who's going to be automated first, the investors or the unicorn?
Or the people with the money, at least. I don't know. The owners.
Very meta.
You need a pension.
The owner class.
No, the pension fund and their algorithm and their startup machine.
Yeah, the AI is investing in other AIs, and that becomes a market, I guess, at some point.
Oh, crazy idea.
Okay, time is flying away. I thought we would start to round off a bit.
Now we are already entered into the more philosophical realm here.
Yes.
So we have already started going. This is an interesting topic to extrapolate. Where are the potential scenarios?
But, How speculative do you think it is, what we were talking about? I mean, are you saying philosophical because it's a mind game, or are you saying that, do you believe in the scenario of the, let's say, 0%?
Now, let's go here. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, if we have had, if we're a typical roundup and the sort of the standing research question that we're building our statistics on is where people think about, where do they put themselves on the spectrum as an AI doomer versus an AI utopia?
Boomer.
Yeah, boomer, doomer. You know what I mean? And then a little bit like, do we understand this as a singularity? Do you understand this as a very fast takeoff? Stuff like this. So speculating on that. Very seldom when we talk about this are we discussing if. It's more a when discussion, and a dystopian. Will we fuck this up on the way, or
exactly.
Is it really AI singularity we should be scared of, or is it we screwing this up as humans on the way? We couldn't regulate it, we couldn't fix it. We got an AI divide, an economic divide that is leading to revolution. There's so many scenarios where
or the perfect oppression. Sorry.
Yeah, the perfect.
Yeah.
So, but I think going back then, so that's what we usually do. But let's go in. So going in that direction, is this a philosophical question? It's a speculative question in relation to where we stand today. But I think it's a very important conversation to understand a little bit. What does it mean to become data and AI ready? What does it become? I think sometimes we talk about AI ethics or AI regulation, but we are not really talking about how the companies should innovate or organize themselves or think about these topics. Because if you think about these topics, you can kind of look at what you're doing today and say, like, you are not organized for dynamic adaptability. You're not organized for modular, navigating an opportunity landscape. You're organized for efficiency in one old game you knew. That's the main problem.
But it's not just a matter of reorganizing a company as is. I mean, that will get you nowhere fast.
No, it's a fundamental.
You need expertise, experience, talent, not least talent, to manage the challenge of doing this transition.
I fully agree. So for me, when reorganizing is not about moving around the pawns.
Shuffling the organizational chart, that will go
that will go nowhere. You need to reimagine what this enterprise is all about, and then you need to staff it and organize it accordingly. Yeah, which is something else.
What's coming up for RISE, you would say, given a 0-person unicorn company in 5 years? Oh, sorry. Ignore that comment.
RISE in general.
RISE and the Center of Applied AI.
How should you be working on the right stuff? What is the right stuff to be working on if we take this more long-term view?
It becomes really tricky if we take the long term. That is sort of speculative today, although I think it's certain in some sense, in a futuristic sense.
But it's interesting. We are used to doing in large corporations strategy, 5-year strategy, 5-year plan, 5-year outlook, 3-year outlook, 1 year like this. So let's take a 5-year outlook on where we are on the trajectory.
But it's much more volatile than that. That's what makes it so different. So I quoting Jeff Hinton on numbers, not for any specific question. He said, in a few years, or at least within 20. I mean, I think those are the numbers we're talking about for many things. Really big things could happen in just a few years, given the pace of investment.
Then we are talking about VUCA. Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. We have all the different scenarios.
Yes.
So then you need to go into another type of strategy work. I mean, like even scenario work, like Vattenfall, we do scenario work, right? Yeah. And we have 3 scenarios. This is something else. So to strategize on how to build a company here and now that can go into an opportunity landscape of that breadth. How do you do that? How should we think?
I can't even imagine. I think maybe you need to organize for being very agile and adaptive.
I think that's the core topic. We're going from economies of scale.
And for learning.
Yes, we're going from economies of scale to economies of learning. We're going from extreme focus on dynamic adaptability versus efficiency. Efficiency is dead as a metric. It's about adaptability.
I don't know.
I mean, with a little luck, you will be very efficient if you manage to adopt these technologies.
Economies of learning beats efficiency of scale, because the economies of learning means magnitudes more efficient.
Then it is more efficient.
But if you stare
from a different short-term or long-term perspective.
If you stare at the efficiency metric, you're going to do a percentage improves. If you look at economies of learning and dynamic adaptability, you are looking at innovation that fundamentally blows
and then efficiency. You mean efficiency of the current process.
It's still efficiency. It's just more.
Of course, it's efficiency, but but when you use the word efficiency, people think about efficiency of the current process, and dynamic adaptability is efficiency.
Or profitability of the current business model.
Yeah,
yes,
and
exactly.
Please don't do that. Do something else.
So what about the future of Center of Applied AI? Do you have any? What's happening? You don't have to think about a 0-person unicorn company. Just anything specific coming up that you're excited about for the Center of Applied AI.
So this construct is not rigged for very disruptive change, of course. I mean, it's an incremental activity at a sort of a fairly small scale compared to the big numbers one can toss around.
Let me make a statement here. And I would say that the Center of Applied AI will look more or less exactly the same in 10 years.
10 years? No, because it's only planned for another 3 years. So
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think within just a few years, the ketchup is out of the bottle, and when it comes to understanding the profitability of adopting these methods, this will just become painfully obvious. So in 10 years, I would be surprised if RISE will probably exist in 10 years, and I would be surprised if the corresponding activities will not be 10, 20, 50 times bigger in 10 years. In just a few years, no. It's the usual thing that you tend to exaggerate sort of short-term change, but long-term change, I think, will be profound, actually.
But do you mean for the center or for society?
Not necessarily. We currently have a certain, it doesn't have to do with center, it has to do with RISE as an AI organization. And we already have a sort of line organization with groups driving these areas. The center is just a program to accelerate this. But for RISE as a whole, I'm very sure that AI will be more than 10 times a bigger phenomenon.
Yeah, but
yeah.
It would be strange if it's not. But the argument then is if you imagine now the AI part of RISE, how you organize that.
Yeah.
If you basically now, take a Sam Altman stance on this. We need to go big on this or go home. You would probably start sorting this slightly different than today. Or
I think we'll still have corresponding back office sort of super experts in methods, but I think AI will have started to become integral parts of the way of working of all the parts of RISE within 10 years, certainly. Maybe 1 or 2 areas left behind.
Would the model, the way you approach this now, would that scale tenfold? Or do you need to, where would you need to adjust to scale it tenfold?
I think so.
I mean, you already are doing that. You have more of a hub and spoke kind of starting point already, right? So that will expand, and that I think is clear. The point I'm trying to make here a bit is, and I would like to see if you agree or not. I think we all agree that the technical innovations that we're seeing will be really, really fast, and in a couple of years, 3, 4, or 5 years, we will have amazing AI that can reason and be very agentic and do a lot of things that we can't do today. That will be extreme. My point then is that societal and organizational changes will take much longer time.
They always do.
Yes. So
even if we say, no, it's going faster now. Yes, some things are going faster, but just look at the adoption of internet and whatnot.
So so many people are afraid. If we have an AGI now coming in X number of years, we will lose all our jobs and everything will change. And I don't believe that. That's a bit my point.
I think you're right. The losing all the jobs will take longer time because it requires other technology revolutions in terms of robotics, for example, and 3D printing, things like that, automatic.
And then history has shown us that when we get new tools and we work on different abstraction levels, not necessarily has the job disappeared, or some has, but a lot of them has changed, and other jobs has come up instead. So you have, so the factory looks very different.
But today. Is it a natural law? I wonder.
Natural law.
If it's a totally different ballgame now with a technology that actually replaces can replace cognitive and humans. What humans do.
Yeah. So the core question is this a different ballgame altogether because it's a cognitive ballgame? We are not replacing muscle power. We are replacing brain power or augmenting brain power, and that might. Maybe we don't know.
Fine motoric skills will take a little longer because this is apparently more difficult than developing AI, but that will happen as well, of course.
So cognitive first, but then also to more physical systems as well. but changing the society and companies, I think, will take equally
decades.
More
Decades. Yeah.
Okay, should we end there perhaps with the standard question?
Yeah, let's. I hinted to the standard question, but let's ask it properly, like you always do, Anders.
Well, assuming that point will happen, then that we don't only have a cognitive AGI, but potentially even a physical AGI. And you can think about two extremes here. One is that this will lead to the destruction of humankind, a very dystopian future with the Terminator movies and the Matrix coming to life. Or perhaps we start a new war that is being driven by AI that kills us all in some way. Or the other extreme, of course, is a utopian one where we have a future of abundance, as many people say now, which basically means that we have solved the cancer, perhaps, and we have solved
the post-scarcity society of
Yes,
EA and banks.
exactly.
I love the culture novels; they are so good.
Yeah, but the post-scarcity.
But they require also this, motor skills, robots.
Yeah. So this is the mission.
So where are you on that scale? Between a utopian and a dystopian future?
Yeah, I believe they can more or less. I mean, not the full-blown dystopia cannot coexist. But I mean, today, people are living in abject poverty and misery, and some are very rich, and this will continue. So we will have a mixture of utopia and dystopia for a long time to go. So
you answer this in a new way. Do you think there's a scenario where this is actually not either or?
No, I mean, some people will kill other people with AI robots as they are killing them in other ways today.
Will there be less poverty in that future?
There could be, of course. But the question is, who owns the productive technology? Who controls it? Who cares enough?
Who distributes the wealth?
Who distributes the wealth? Who cares enough to distribute the wealth? Sam Altman? I don't know. Maybe. If someone will tell wonderful stories about him after he's dead, maybe he will.
Yeah. I'm eager to go to the OpenAI story. We didn't do the news section. We forgot about that.
No, should we?
No, it's not.
No, it's done.
Too late.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. That's interesting answer.
That's an interesting angle. That was a
Yeah.
fresh angle because we asked this question at least 50 times.
I think so too.
It's an interesting thought experiment, and to hear people's answer to this. Yours was very nice, very interesting.
Right.
We take the news, I think, off camera. So with that, I'd love to thank you very much, Sverker Janson. I hope you stay on for a bit of an off-camera discussion. But it was a true pleasure to have you here, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.